Good evening. How are you? My name is Antoine McHenry, founder of You Can Turn It Around non-for-profit, and this evening we are going to talk about snitching. We're going to talk about the no snitching policy. We're going to talk about who it's affecting. We're going to talk about why it is harmful, and we're going to talk about what we can do to bring peace and safety to our communities. Now I'm about to go on the You Can Turn It Around page. If you're tuning in, I encourage you to share this video because we'd like your input. We don't want it to be a one-sided conversation, but it's a conversation that we need to have. I live in Chicago, Illinois, in West Humboldt Park. I grew up in West Humboldt Park for the most part, but also in a part of Garfield Park, which are areas that have high instances of violence. There's a lot of stuff going on in regards to safety and homicides and things like that. So we definitely want to talk about this discussion. So let's just kind of get down to it. I'm going to urbandictionary.com to kind of give you some background on the word snitch and kind of lay a foundation. So according to urbandictionary.com, it says, in the criminal sense, a snitch will provide information to the police or feds in order to obtain lenient treatment for themselves and provide information over an extended period of time in return for money or for the police to overlook their own criminal activities. Quite often, someone will become an informant following their arrest. I'm going to go down a little further. It says a snitch is not the innocent person who has a serial killer living next door, so he tells the police to get the trash out of the community. A snitch is someone who's slinging dope or doing some other wrongdoing and gets caught, but instead of taking their punishment like a man, they tell the authorities info on other criminals so that they can get off scot-free or reduce their own punishment. That is a snitch. And of course, that's from urbandictionary.com. And if you kind of listen to what it's saying, it kind of is laying the foundation that a snitch is a bad thing. A snitch is something negative. A snitch is somebody that got caught doing something wrong. So in exchange for getting off or getting a more lenient system, then they work with the authorities to catch other criminals. So which is not what the street is not what we are going to talk about no snitching in the context of this discussion. So they have put a negative definition on snitching, and they have, and I say they, when I say they, I mean people who have been involved in criminal activities, people who are murdering and people who are stealing and doing things like that. And they have kind of created this atmosphere, this culture where if something bad happens, like say for instance, a homicide, somebody gets killed, and you see something, they have created a culture where it is uncool to share with the authorities or people that can help. They've made it uncool to work with them and to try to bring this person to justice. Now, what is the crazy thing about snitching is that this whole street policy kind of negatively affects black and brown communities more because, you know, the instances of homicide that are reported are higher. You know, if you're looking at the news and you're looking at a newspaper and you're looking at statistics, we in our communities, we have a higher instance of murder and crime, you know, if you believe all statistics. So it is uncool to tell the police that, you know, I know who killed this person. And I'll be right back because the timer went off. And I'm back. So they've made it very uncool to work with the police and the authorities. However, in our communities, we have children who are getting murdered. We have women that are getting murdered. And not just women and children. Of course, you know, we have men that are also being murdered. And there are people that know what's going on. There are people who are part of what's going on. And nobody wants to tell. You know, many of us know children, the family of children who have gotten killed, you know, whether it was intentional, which is kind of what we're seeing in the news in Chicago now. There was an instance of a young man being lured into an alley by adults and killed, a child, killed by adults in retaliation for something that was going on the street. We have instances of children that are sleeping in their own beds, and stray bullets are coming in and they're getting shot in their homes, in their beds. We have people getting set up and robbed and things of that nature. And people know. I mean, we recently saw in, I believe it was last year, a young lady was, I'm not sure if she was talking to a coworker or some friends. She was talking about getting her tax return. And the young lady was actually set up by someone she knew, who she was discussing what she was going to be spending her tax return on, and she got murdered. So these are all instances where people's lives are affected. People's lives are taken. Their families' lives are affected because they have to deal with someone being murdered. And I always say that somebody knows something. Somebody saw something. Somebody heard something, because oftentimes when somebody commits a crime, they're committing it with other people, or the guilt, even if their conscience is very low, they're sharing that with somebody. So nobody's telling. And why is this so bad? This is so bad because crime is at an all-time high. If you look at the news, I was looking at the news when I was with my friend Danielle, and I was just saying, this is why I don't turn on the news. I just read articles in the Facebook feed, and even that is still negativity. So when you're watching the news, you're bombarded with this homiciding and this shooting and this going on. And it's crazy. We cannot live in peace. We're living in fear. People don't want to sit on their porches. People don't want to go outside. People are living in constant fear, all because a lot of our communities are riddled with crime. They're riddled with murders, and people are just in fear. So the negativity is reinforcing the no snitch policy. I've been in education for 16 years, and there was an instance where there was a shooting in our community. And some of my students were actually in the vicinity where the shooting was going on, and they came to school the next day, and some of them were talking about how they were running and how they were hiding under cars and how they saw the shooters. And their families told them, don't tell what you saw. If the police ask, don't tell. If anybody asks, don't tell. You didn't see anything. So you have these children who have literally had to slide under cars when someone else in the community was, going off, shooting, trying to kill somebody, and they're being told, you saw this, it was wrong, but don't tell anybody. So why don't people tell? Why don't people snitch? People don't snitch, and I hate to use that term, people don't tell because they are being threatened by the people who are doing the killing and the murdering or the illegal activity. They're being threatened not only by them, they're being threatened by their family members, and then you have all of this pressure from the surrounding community that says, don't tell, don't snitch. You ain't seen nothing. You didn't see nothing. You didn't see anything. It's not cool. You're not cool. And then you just have all of this stuff going on, which is really not healthy. We even have it in our families. Growing up, you were told, what goes on in this house stays in this house. You better not tell anybody anything. And then you had that was used with children that were being abused, children that were being neglected. People have grown up and shared accounts of being raped by family or friends. And, they were told not to tell anybody. So snitching and telling is kind of the same thing. What we need to do is we need to create communities and families where people are comfortable and people feel safe about telling. Because we cannot continue to go on and to have people die and to have people killed and just think that's okay, that's the norm. This has become the norm for so many people, I'm 40, I'll be 43 years old next month. No snitching goes back to when I was growing up, and no telling. And so that's like a couple of decades, and it's been going on before that, a couple of decades of programming of teaching young people not to tell, even when it can help somebody else. I've been to many vigils. I've have wonderful friends from Parents for Peace and Justice, and these mothers and these fathers who suffer and who are continually mourning because their children have been murdered out on the street, in public spaces where other people have seen, and they're advocating and they're begging and they're putting up rewards. Somebody please come forward. Somebody please help us. And you have instances where nobody ever comes forward. So the people have no closure. They have no peace. They're thinking about how their family member, their loved ones were taken away from them. Because, dying through murder and dying through natural causes, both are devastating. But somebody's life being taken away is double the devastation. So you have people who are going through this, and people know what happened. People know what went on, but nobody wants to tell. Nobody wants to say anything. However, when you flip the script and it's in your family and one of your family murders a member, and then we go all out and we say, somebody saw something. I know somebody saw something. This is my loved one. Please help. Please help. We cannot think that when it happens to us, then the scenario is supposed to change. Now, why don't people snitch? One of the main reasons why people say that they don't snitch is because they can't trust the police. So trust is one of the main issues. Let's write that down. Trust. We don't trust the police. Some people say that, if I tell the police are in cahoots with the gang members or the drug dealers in the neighborhood. So I believe if I tell somebody, then they're going to tell the people and they're going to get me. And I see Anastasia says, are there any committees dedicated to physically protecting those who snitch, specifically community organized and led committees? Not that I know of. Not that I know of, because I don't believe that we are organized enough in Chicago, organized enough on our blocks and our families I think that's something that we're going to have to do. Because, of course, the police say, I'll protect you, I'll protect you. But I just read in the news, last week where a young lady was testifying in her cousin. She saw somebody kill her cousin. And this was a family member, and she was testifying, and not too long ago, I believe last week, she was murdered. So to answer the question, no, there's nobody, there's no committees dedicated to physically protecting those other than the police. And we know what that looks like. We have so many homicides going on. There's number one, not enough manpower. Number two, do all of them want to do it? But for me, if we are totally depending on the police to protect us from things like that, then I think we're going to be at a disadvantage. We have to get back into protecting each other. I know one of my good friends, Hassan Trumbull, he appears in some of the Year of the King visuals. He often talks about the urban terrorism that is going on in our community, something that we don't want to talk about. Urban terrorism, we have, people set up blocks. We got, it's the dope boys and it's the gang dealers, the gang members, and they are literally terrorizing people on the block. They got their operations set up. They're selling whatever they're selling. They're making profit. And nobody in the community is benefiting from this. Maybe a couple of younger guys who have been encouraged to do it. But it's creating a destructive and dangerous environment. And what happens is, neighbors just kind of sit around and let stuff happen because they're afraid. I don't want to get involved. But then when we're afraid and we don't want to get involved, who does that hurt? That stray bullet can come in our house. So what I think we need to do is we do need dedicated committees, but I don't think they're going to be from elected officials or from the police. I think those are instances where we're going to have to get men on the block who care and who are going to dedicate their lives on that block of that community to protect the community. What does that mean? That may mean working with the police. That may mean being armed with legal conceal and carries, because you definitely don't want to combat violence with violence. However, we have to know that there are people who are running operations that are coming to plunder, that are coming to kill, that are coming to steal. So part of protecting yourself is having some protection on your personal body or in your home. Somebody comes in your home to steal, kill, and plunder. What are you going to do? So that's just something to think about. Not advocating violence or anything, but I do believe that conceal and carry does have its advantages. I just read in a report today, this man's home was being broken into by 3 teens. It wasn't in Chicago, 3 masked teens. So they pretty much broke into his house, and I guess did not expect him, number one, maybe to be there, or number two, to protect himself. Hold on 1 minute. And actually, all of the intruders were murdered because he had a legal weapon in his house, and they came in with a gun. So they came in with the intention of robbing. However, they brought a gun with them, and it was just unfortunate that all 3 of them lost their lives trying to break into somebody's house. And there were some teens, I know they were interviewing, and I guess a lot of the teens and the families were saying, he didn't have to kill him. He could have shot him in the leg or whatever. And the irony of that is that these 3 young people went into the house to either rob and steal, and they had a weapon, so they were planning to just in case they ran into somebody, were they just going to shoot him in his leg? No, back in the mind, there was the intention to kill him. So we just have to be vigilant. We got to protect ourselves. Now, I definitely believe, God is our protector, and you try to minister to people and do as much as you can. However, if somebody is coming in your house with the intention to kill you, you have to protect yourself. But we definitely have to protect our communities. I know a lot of discussion is going on about, women saying, men aren't protecting us, men aren't protecting us, men aren't protecting us. But we're going to have to sit down and strategize about how we can protect our communities from what's going on. Anastasia said, I completely agree with that idea, and we shouldn't rely on the police, elected officials to protect us. Unfortunately, I just don't trust them. And I can identify that. I know police officers. I have to work with police officers in our community, and the breakdown is that they don't trust us either, which is why we're getting shot and killed in bigger numbers than everybody else. So just as much as we don't trust them, when they're out, a lot of them are afraid for their lives. They see the numbers. A lot of them may have not grown up in urban communities. They may have not seen any black and brown people. They just know about us based on what they've seen on TV and what they've been told. So they are locked and loaded and ready. And even the small inkling of them thinking that they're going to get shot, they're going to shoot you as well. And they're going to get away with it, as we see in the local news all the time. He had a gun. I thought he had a gun, so I shot him. So a lot of police are saying, I want to go home to my family too. I'm not going to chance not going home to my family by being shot by somebody that's out there. So it's a lot of work to be done on both sides, and I'm glad you brought that point up, because more people, a lot of people are saying, the police don't snitch. Let's talk about that part. Like I said, I have friends that are police officers. I have family members that are police officers. And a lot of people say, I'm not snitching to the police because they don't snitch, because there's something called the blue code. So I have to ask people that are in law enforcement the question. So if you're out with a partner, and just theoretical situation, if you're out with a partner and you make a stop, you see this guy, he looks the part, he looks like a gang member or a thug, how we paint people on TV, and your partner plants some crack on him to bump up his numbers to get a bust. Are you going to tell on your partner planting that crack? Hypothetical situation. Because it happens. It happens all the time. We've seen the body cams that forgot to get turned off. We see video footage of people getting drugs planted on them. So part of this whole no snitching discussion is law enforcement and trust. And can I trust you? Can I trust you? And am I going to be safe? If snitching or telling, am I going to be safe if I'm working with you? We've seen movies about witness protection programs, and we've heard in the news of people who lose their lives because there was no protection. There was no protection from the police. There was no 24-hour guard sitting outside the person's house. And even after a court trial or something is over, can you guarantee my safety? Most of the time, that's a no. But we have to think about, on a broader level, is teaching our youth and teaching our families that, if you see something, you just don't say anything and you just let it go on. I think it creates a culture where we can be terrorized constantly by the same people over and over again. Somebody kills your relative and there's no snitching going on. And everybody in the community knows, but they're afraid of them. Kind of like on New Jack City. So nobody's going to say anything. This person gets to walk free and roam to and fro like a lion and terrorize everybody. And they just live their life in safety, or until somebody else decides to retaliate, which is what happens. So we got to talk about this issue. We have to work on this issue. It's a bad situation because when you say something, your life may be in jeopardy, and not even just saying anything, trying to do something positive. How many times have we heard of community activists and people lose their lives that are simply trying to do block club parties, people that are simply trying to make the community safe, people that are protesting, and people that are doing vigils? How many times have we heard about them losing their lives, or them their safety being compromised because people in the community that were not doing the right thing did not like they were doing. They did not like the attention that was bringing. They were cutting into their money because a lot of it's about finances. If I'm protesting and I'm marching and I'm bringing attention to murder and the drug sales, you cutting in on somebody's money. But also think of it the opposite side of the spectrum. Everybody in the community is scared. Everybody is in fear. And that illegal activity that's being brought into your community is putting everybody's life in jeopardy because a bullet has nobody's name on it. What if they're shooting with somebody that came into the community to buy drugs? Or what if they're shooting at somebody that came in the community to take over their set, and your baby is on the front porch or playing around the corner or sitting on the couch watching TV and that bullet comes in? That is a threat that we have to talk about, and we have to realize that if we don't build some systems of protection and we don't start to educate people more and more on safety and realize that this is not normal, that it has become normal to us, these violent communities and neighborhoods, but it's really not normal. So the adults now, and I'm saying because I'm 43 and a lot of my friends are kind of around my age, but then you have another generation, the people that are in their 30s and the people that are in their mid-20s. It's kind of our job now to be the elders. It's our job to step up and to deal with some of these issues because, we can't look at our 60, 70, 80-year-old mothers and grandparents and aunts and uncles to tackle these problems anymore. These are problems that we have to deal with because now we are the adults. Now we are the people that are in decision-making seats, and we are the people that can do something. Kind of give you like a little shot of this is a workshop that I did at West Park Academy when I was working there, and it was the anti-violence poetry workshop where we worked with Chicago's Children's Theater, and we basically talked about the culture of violence and how it has become a norm, how we have become so desensitized to violence, and how we hear gunshots and we don't move. I know there's a discussion in one of my friends' circle. I was doing a live video on my balcony and I was talking and there was a gunshot, and I stopped for a minute and I just kind of went back to the discussion that I was having, and they were like, you just kind of went back to what you were doing. And that's part of being desensitized to violence. So we have children growing up in war zones, pretty much, and it's their norm. And the workshop that we did was kind of, addressing those feelings and talking about solutions and saying this is not normal. The norm that has been created for us, this violent society, this being afraid to sit on your porch, this not speaking to your neighbors, this turning your eye away from illegal activities, this is not normal, but it has become normal. But this normal that we now live in is very dangerous. It's very toxic. People are talking about toxic masculinity. Let's talk about these toxic communities, and let's talk about how ignoring violence is toxic and how it is ripping our families apart, destroying our families, putting our families in the grave. So I think we just really need to begin to talk about this violence piece and how we can create some solutions, some workable solutions, some sustainable solutions, because it has to change. It's not healthy. So what can you do? Just like I said, I have to work with the police to create a safe environment in my community, because I've worked with kids for 16 years. I want them to be safe. I want them to grow up. And many times I have went outside on my balcony and saw students that were shot. One of my former students luckily he was grazed, but he was outside sitting on the corner. Somebody shot him. I go out there, there's neighbors around him, he's bleeding. He had to get him to apply pressure until the ambulance come. Nobody should live like that. Nobody deserves to live like that. And it's time that I'm officially Generation X and Millennials and Generation Z. It's time for us to stand up and start putting together some solutions that are workable and that are going to create communities that we want to live in. We can't run away from violence. This is in all the major cities. You can insulate yourself. Money helps insulate you from violence. Doesn't always work. You can run away to the Gold Coast or Pill Hill, or you can run out to the suburbs. But violence happens there too. It's just not reported as much, and the instances are smaller, but we have to do it. So that's kind of what I wanted to hop on and talk about. Once again, from You Can Turn It Around, of course. Originally started because of violence in my community. One day, I was sitting on the porch, and some shots rang out. Then I went to work the next day, and the community went on lockdown because it was a territorial gang war. And when we were finally able to come out of the school building, we had police officers standing on our corners with assault rifles. The block was locked down at least, seemed like two nights we had police stationed outside on our corners, and it was just a very, very scary time, a very bad time, where gang violence had erupted to the point where we had to have officers standing on our corners with rifles. So then I asked myself, what could I do about it? How can I address this? How can I inspire younger people to get involved in creating their own solutions, creating their own rescue mechanisms? Because it's one thing for someone older to talk about violence and combating violence, but a lot of people that are dying are younger people in the prime of their life, in their 20s and teens, and even younger than that. We need solutions from younger people. We need to convince people that there's another way. Now, we know that poverty plays into violence. We know that broken homes play into violence. People growing up without fathers, and people growing up without mothers, and people just having all of these emotional things going on and not really knowing how to deal with them. So what happens? People lash out, people get angry, people go get a gun. There's a fight and somebody gets whooped the old-fashioned way. They're embarrassed and they're mad and they come back and they shoot up everything. Somebody is told they can't come into a party and the party gets shot up, but somebody knows who did the shooting. Somebody knows where the gun came from, and nobody says anything. So I am encouraging everybody that sees the video, everybody that listens to the video. Thank you, Anastasia, for commenting. Share the video, and let's talk about some solutions. I'm going to be popping on here more regularly, because that, as the original part of You Can Turn It Around, having roundtable discussions, and not just having discussions, creating solutions. And we can't wait for the mayor. We can't wait for the police. We can't wait for the president. We're going to have to take some action ourselves. Anastasia says, do you feel that nowadays appealing to people's morale is enough to get them to change their ways of thinking or acting? I would say yes and no, because I've heard discussions and been in settings where people talk about morality. And morality is not looked upon as a high totem pole as it is anymore. So appealing to people's sense of morality or things being right and wrong, that does not always work anymore, because people, number one, there's been a discussion, there is no God. Why go to church? Why be spiritual? Why do any of that? And we know that morality fits into that. So if there is no morality, then there's no heaven, there's no hell, there's no consequence. You can just shoot and kill anybody you want to. It's a dog eat dog world, and you just got to deal with it. So I believe that everything starts when people are younger. That's why I think that we need to instill a sense of morality in people as they're younger, because it's much easier to raise somebody up, Anastasia, I believe, than it is to try to reprogram them once they get 17, 18, 19, and 20. I don't think it's impossible. I just think it's a heavier lift and it's a bigger toe. So I think the solution is to, deal with from the crib till they get up this high. I think we have to start having conversations about morality and instill it in people that know it's not right to kill. We know that it has been here since the beginning of time. You have for those that believe in the 10 Commandments and people that believe in laws that have been put into effect, it's unless your life is being threatened, your safety is being threatened, and they're about to kill you and you're protecting yourself, then no, it's not right to kill. People don't believe that anymore. People are teaching, kill, go get you a gun. If you get disrespected, you got to go do this and you got to go take care of that. That is something that we need to change, and that starts when the kids are little. So, and we have to talk about egos, because, a lot of the violence that is being perpetuated is done by men. We don't have women out here on the corners. We do know that women are involved in violence. We don't got women out here on the corners with AK-47s and pistol whipping people and shooting and killing individuals. We don't. And another thing that, I want to talk about, because a lot of people in discussion, a lot of people are talking about, the LGBT community and how that's taken over. And this is crazy and going on. And they're the downfall of the black community. I have not seen one gay, a man, or transgender with an AK-47 on the corner of Pulaski and Madison. Let's see, what's another hot corner? On Central and Lake, on Laramie. I have not seen any of the LGBT community. I have not seen any of these people who are constantly thrown into the media of why they're being the downfall of the black and brown communities. I have not seen them perpetuating any of this violence. Unfortunately, I'm working with men with, you're the king and you can turn it around, and trying to uplift them. But unfortunately, a lot of the people that are perpetuating the violence are men. So we need to do a lot of work with our men. We need to do a lot of reprogramming. We need to do a lot of talking about what is a man. We need to do a lot of, this is how you need to be taking care of your family. This is how you need to be a dad. This is how you provide. A lot of people have grown up without that. And I just think all of that is feeding into the violence. So I don't want to stay here too long. I just wanted to kind of start a discussion about no snitching. Won't be the last one because it's a problem. So I think we need to get in these schools. We need to get in these homes. Parents need to start talking about it. And we need to deal with what's going on, because it is wiping out a lot of our talented people. We don't know, these people could have been doctors. They could have been lawyers. They could have came up with cures for cancer and AIDS and all of this stuff that we say is uncurable. The murder toll is cutting down all of our best and brightest and most talented young people. So I believe that we need to get out here with the young people. We need to talk about morality. We need to talk about why this is not appropriate. I know it's a very anti-God society now. If you listen to many discussions, it's anti-God society, it's anti-church society. But however, when you go back to when more people were going to worship and more people were talking about God, and when morality was big, the crime wasn't invisible or it wasn't non-existent, but we do know that you could appeal to people in that kind of way. A lot of times now, when you're having discussions with young men, the discussions I've had, Anastasia, I've had to appeal to the hurt that they have. Like, what's going on in your life, young man? What makes you want to hurt somebody? So I think that you can, of course, lead with that morality, but you also have to talk about what hurt is leading you to murder somebody, or to feel that it's okay to play God and take somebody else's life. So I think we need to deal with the hurt that people are going through, the abandonment issues that they have, the sense of hopelessness that they have, and I think we need to appeal to what goes on, what happens after I die, because a lot of people, if you kind of weave that into morality, a lot of people think, when I'm dead, I'm dead. So if when I'm dead, I'm dead like Rover, like the dog, there's no consequences when I die, then why would I care about killing you? And from working in the community, I have listened to a lot of younger people, a lot of guys feel that it doesn't matter, there's no hope. There's no heaven or hell to go to. So I can just do what I want. And this is the way that life is. I've had people say, well, why are you marching? Why are you doing all this? Why are you handing out stuff? Why are you trying to help people? It don't matter. It don't matter. This is what it is. It is what it is. And if people have that mentality, then of course they don't care about killing, and they definitely don't care about telling the police or telling anybody who killed someone else, because it's not my problem. That's a part of it. So your family's hurt. So your family had to bury your brother or your sister or your cousin or your aunt or your uncle or your daddy. That's your problem. You ain't got no insurance. That's your problem. You pass the head around, figure out a way. And that's what a lot of people are thinking. So I think we need to have discussions like this on a broader level. We need to talk about solutions. We already know the problems. We don't have to talk about the problems. You can turn on the news and see all the problems. You can read the newspapers and see all the problems. You can go to the library and pull up the problems. You can go to the internet and pull all the statistics up for whatever neighborhood you live in. So the problems are there. What isn't there is the solutions. What isn't there is who's going to own these tasks. Like, what kind of tasks are you going to have? Are you going to have a block club? Are you going to do a phone tree? Are you going to try to appeal to the people that are selling drugs, or the people that are selling guns? Or it needs to be a comprehensive plan with all stakeholders involved in it. So, that's my time. I just wanted to kind of drop that out there and begin a discussion, because it's been a heavy summer. Every weekend, I live in Chicago. Every weekend they splash those numbers. So many people were shot over the weekend. So many people lost their lives. We've had instances where hospitals could not deal with the amount of trauma that was coming through. Hospitals not even equipped to deal with all the killing. So it is a very big problem. However, I do believe that we can do something about it, because we've grown up under some of the best people. We live in some of the best times in regards to accessing information and things of that nature. So I believe that we can do it. I believe that we just need to work together. Thank you. Blessings, brother. Thank you for your insight and honesty, and keep doing the work. I'm trying. I am trying. I'm passionate about it. You have to be passionate about it, because one thing that I've learned is doing this kind of work and working in the community, you're not going to get rich. It's just like teaching. You're not going to get rich. You're not going to get a lot of thank yous, and you're not going to get a lot of support. But the work needs to be done, because if nobody does it, then society will continue to slide down a slippery slope. I don't believe that I don't believe that everything is going to ever be perfect. I don't believe that violence is ever going to die. But I do believe that we can try to make a better world, and we can try to help help each other, because that's one of the things that I've learned. I try to keep my faith in God. I try to pray regularly. Not the best prayer, not the most, doesn't have that unshakable faith, but I don't think anybody does. But I just try to do what I need to do. So I just encourage you to get out here, get out in your communities, help how you can. Let's talk to people about creating safe communities and things like that. On an ending note, you got the Year of the King Gala coming up December 7th. I posted in the group the flyers. Tickets are $25. We're also looking for people to sponsor. What's up, Brandon? What's up, Brandon? My former student, Brandon. What's up, Brandon? You know, I'm at the community. I'm in the community now, Brandon. I'm no longer at West Park Academy. You know, after 16 years, I'm moving on to doing things like this. So, hey, Brandon, you know, if you got some knowledge, you want to talk to some young people, we are definitely looking for people to share their information and support they can to make these communities safer. So peace out. You all have a fantastic night. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you, Brandon, for tuning in. You all have a safe one. Peace out.